This is a... What's the best way of describing it? It is I hate this word, dramedy. It's a comedy drama.
Don't use it.
I'm not going to use it in that case. It's a sort of comedy drama inspired by a Rolling Stone article, Arms and the Dudes, about two Miami stoners who became these sort of high-flying arms dealers. The two leads, the two central characters, are played by Miles Teller and Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill is basically this incredibly garrulous character who is described at one point as being somebody who discovers what it is that people want him to be, and then he becomes that. Miles Teller is his sort of dorkier sidekick who they were friends at school. They knew each other at school. They meet up at a funeral. It turns out that Jonah Hill's character has discovered a way of making money by working in the arms industry. There's a voiceover all the way through which says, "War is economy. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either in on it or stupid." And so basically the Jonah Hill character, Efraim, models himself on Pacino's Scarface. He's got a huge poster of Pacino's Scarface on the wall behind him. He takes the character under his wing and says, "Come with me." And the next thing that they know is that they're looking at this thing called the FedBizOp website, which is described as basically eBay for war. And the description is that thanks to the way in which the government has now organised this, all these arms deals have to be sort of put out to tender. And whilst these two total chancers have no hope of getting in with the big deals, they do have a hope of getting in with the small deals, of picking up the crumbs. And as the Jonah Hill character says, there's a lot of crumbs. Then along comes a much larger deal, which involves supplying munitions to the Afghanistan National Army. And the next thing they know is it looks possible that they may land that, not least because of an appearance by Bradley Cooper.
I showed him the list, and he can help.
Great. With which part?
All of it. He can fill the whole order.
You do know it's 100 million rounds, right?
Henry has contacts in Albania.
That country's one giant arsenal.
Tell him the best part.
They're in the process of joining NATO, so they have to dispose of all of their Soviet-era weapons. And I can get most of it for pennies on the dollar.
Now tell him the other best part.
You're looking at the exclusive agent for the whole thing.
Why don't you just bid on the contract yourself?
I'm on a watch list.
Like a terrorist watch list?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Wait, what?
Okay, how much for the AK ammo?
10 cents a ride.
I'm sorry, you're on a terrorist watch list?
Do it for Homeland Security? Relax, bro.
Well, you two should probably talk this over.
We will, but we are very interested.
Good. My flight leaves tomorrow morning at 10. I can't spend more than 48 hours in this dump.
That's what I always say. Vegas is a 2-day town.
I was talking about America.
So the film is directed by Todd Phillips, and this brings us back once again to The Hangover. And my problem with The Hangover was always to do with I thought those films had a nasty edge to them. In the case of this, if it has a problem, it's that it doesn't have perhaps the nasty, cynical edge that it needs to have in order to make it work. On the plus side, Jonah Hill is terrific. He's building on the promise of roles in things like Moneyball and Wolf of Wall Street. And of course, because he's in the film, people have made comparisons between this and Wolf of Wall Street. They've said it's sort of Scorsese-esque. I mean, I think actually, it's if you want to find a real predecessor for this, look back to 1983 and Chevy Chase starring in Deal of the Century, which is a film that nobody remembers and nobody particularly liked at the time, but is the same kind of arms dealer satire vibe. It has this kind of scattershot soundtrack which flies around all different time periods, occasionally harking back to attempt to evoke the sort of madness of Vietnam. You get, Creedence, that sort of stuff. And it's sort of all those films, but seen through, Three Kings and Jarheads, and to some extent Air America, and it ends up with Leonard Cohen. Although I have to say that we were talking about Suicide Squad before. If you compare the way in which the music is used in this, it's coherent. It actually has a logic behind it. Somebody's actually sat down and thought about the way in which they're using the music. Although I found the music kind of occasionally jarring and occasionally sort of rather overdone, it is all there for a purpose, trying out guns to the sound of Wish You Were Here and that sort of thing. Plus, the script is fairly sharp. There is, as I said, that description about Jonah Hill's character being somebody who understands what people want them to be and is it in advance. There's lots of sort of bon mots about this isn't about being pro-war, it's about being pro-money. You also get these gnomic intertitles. So you get these sort of, the film is...
You get what?
Intertitles. Basically, the thing is that you'll get a phrase, like, for example, all the money is made between the lines. when does telling the truth ever hurt anybody? God bless Dick Cheney's America. These are phrases from the movie that just turn up on the screen as intertitles, which is sort of, leading us through. You know what an intertitle is?
No.
It's words written on the screen. You know when you used to have silent movies and you'd stop seeing the action and you'd see something written on a intertitle.
An intertitle. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So these things come up throughout, sort of to kind of punctuate the drama. The problem with it is that in order for it to fully do what it's trying to do, and obviously it's a fictionalized version of this story. I mean, it has its roots in a kind of reality, but it's fictionalized. In order to do what it's trying to do, what it needs to have is a sort of is more of an edge about what's really going on, about the fact that it's to do with arms deals, about the fact that it's to do with supplying munitions, about the fact that one of the characters is, foul-mouthed and apparently completely without any sense of, the morality of the situation. The whole thing is to do with money. It's not to do with things. And the movie needs, therefore, to be more cynical. And it kind of bottles out of doing that, because what it wants you to do is, whilst accepting that what the characters are doing is not necessarily good, it still wants to have a slightly kind of goofball feel to it as you're watching this stuff play out. Now, it's interesting. If you look, I mean, I mentioned Deal of the Century before, which incidentally is a William Friedkin film, so obviously it's the thing that's going to leap to my mind. But
Live from Norwich.
Pardon?
It's the quiz of the week.
What?
Sorry, it was a different quiz show. Go on, carry on.
What?
No, go on.
I have no idea why you just said Live from Norwich.
It's I'll explain, but I realised that we're close to the news.
Oh, okay, fine. So
you finish.
Okay, so that thing about the boundary, the boundary between satire and humour is very, very difficult. I mean, very few films can get that. I mean, like you look at Doctor Strangelove as a kind of high watermark at getting the insanity of war thing, right? And then and then everything else sort of trickles down from there. So I think you have a good performance by Jonah Hill, who is, has turned into actually a very versatile actor. You have some interesting material that the film never really properly comes to terms with. But as it flounders around to some extent, there's enough going on that keeps you interested. And I was never bored. I thought a lot of it, I've seen a lot of this before, and I've seen a lot of this done, more incisively. But it's just what it needs is more of an edge. What it needs is a tougher, harder edge, which is kind of ironic considering the subject matter, but that's the thing that it lacks.